So let's just start with what is systemic constellation? What is this work all about?
Okay, so it's systemic work in constellation. So you didn't just happen in a vacuum. You're part of a family, whether you know your family or whether you don't. And you all know, or everybody knows, we inherit physical things, our hair, our eyes, the color of our eyes. But what they don't all know is that we also inherit thoughts, feelings, and actions. That's
Mm.
what we call our emotional DNA. Also, so to look at your emotional DNA, we use a thing called a constellation. And a
Okay.
constellation is a 3D version of what you've got going on in here with your thoughts and feelings. We put down in front of you using figurines or noughts and crosses. And then we begin to ask you all the questions that show you your buried treasure and the pieces that get you stuck and how we get past those.
Oh, wow. This is so interesting. A constellation is like a group of stars, right?
A constellation is like a group of stars, and if you've learned about stars, you know that if any one of those stars is missing, it isn't that constellation anymore. The other piece that's really important is that you belong. Everybody
Mm.
belongs in a family. Whether they know the family or not, they still belong. And they're affected by all of the other stars as well. But even more important, you can affect all the other stars. And that's
Oh, yeah.
really important.
Okay, so it sounds like this is a really important thing for us to understand. We're doing this as families. We've got parents, we've got kids here, how we all affect each other. And then you're talking about something in our DNA. It sounds like even family members that maybe aren't even alive anymore are also affecting us. So, how can working with this systemic constellation work help us in our families?
Okay, so here's how it's super useful. As I said, we inherit those patterns of thoughts, feelings, and actions, and that's in every area of our lives. So let's suppose that growing up, you're suddenly finding that you're very shy. Nobody understands why, but you
Mm,
keep disappearing a little bit and you keep
okay.
disappearing. If we look back into your family line, we may find that there was somebody who did disappear. And
Oh,
because
wow.
they were excluded, you're showing up, but you're repeating their pattern. So what
Uh-huh.
we do is we have a look and say, okay, so now we see the missing one, but here's the gift. You're the one who was able to look, and now you're showing up and becoming very visible. And that's no longer going to affect you. The shyness will very likely not stick around anymore.
Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. How does something that happened, say I had an ancestor who disappeared, how does that become part of me or other people that are listening? How do we get those imprints?
One is if there was a big set of feelings around that imprint, it becomes a part of your DNA. It
Wow.
imprints onto your DNA. But the other thing is, think about when you've said, your mother has said to you, don't do that, you could disappear. Don't run away around the corner. What if you disappear? Those sentences keep passing down from generation to generation. So there's a pattern. Or don't get too excited. If you get too excited, things will go wrong. Where did that come from?
Hmm.
So when we find out where it came from, we can actually tell that sentence, thank you very much. You've served a purpose. It's time for you to rest. And
Hmm.
you get to say, you know what? It's okay for me to go around the corner, Mom. I'm not going to disappear. So
Yeah.
it's really untangling what we've heard and what we've experienced. Maybe we see a mother or a father working hard all the time. And as a child, we forget how to play. And then when we
Yeah.
ask the father, why do you work so hard? Or the mother, well, because my mother and father worked so hard, and their
Hmm.
mother and father worked so hard. You may be the antidote who says, can we learn to play too?
So it sounds like we have these, I don't know, almost like computer programs that are running in the background, informing our personality, and we're not even aware of it. And they could be causing problems in our lives that didn't even come from us, that came from someone else, and we don't even know about it.
Exactly. It's almost like you're defaulting to D drive all the time. And
Mm.
really, that D drive isn't you. What you're often doing is you're repeating those patterns. But if you think about it, there's a little part of you when you're repeating a difficult pattern that's going, I wish I could do it this way. That's the part of you that we're really interested in, because that's the part of you that is the change agent, changing what's been happening in the family system for decades, if not centuries. And that little wish, I love there's that movie Wish out now, right? And she wishes for something better. What she's doing is she's saying more is possible. And everyone in the family has that possibility. The minute they start to make the wish, they start to come out from the family spell, and they start to direction of something very different.
Wow. Of course, I'm sure everyone's wondering, how do we do this? Can you give us a few tips?
Sure. So one of the ways you do it is you sit down and you write down all of your thoughts, feelings, and actions around where you feel stuck. And then listen to those thoughts, feelings, and actions. Who did those come from? Are they yours? Or is there a mother or a father or a parent or an uncle or an aunt who says the same thing? Because if they do, you might just be borrowing their stuff instead of creating your own. So when you've done that place where you feel stuck, then ask yourself, what do I wish? How do I wish it could be? Because that's the part of you that's trying to come out from under that tangly mess this side.
So you make the wish and then you take some action?
You make the wish, and you've got to make that wish so powerful in your brain that your body feels it. And people always say to me, but how do you do that? Do it the other way around, because we often go, oh, I'm so stupid. And the body feels it.
That feels bad.
And then that becomes the new truth. What I'm saying to you is, now let's do it the other way around. Here's what I really want to do. And you can feel it, and your brain lights up, and your heart feels like this is so good. And even your tummy starts to get in on the action. And you've heard this yourself, and anybody watching will have heard. I knew when I was 12 years old, I would do this. Why? Because you wished and you said yes to the wish. And the minute your body says yes to the wish from your brain, that becomes a very good truth. And so you've got to, it's not just, I wish, and it sits up here. And you're going, that'll never happen, because you've just told yourself two stories. You've got to wish, you've got to feel. And yes, then you've got it. Then the practice is one new thought. So what's possible?
Okay.
What new feeling, because that thought's going to give you a new feeling. And what one small action can I take that gets me pretty excited and moving in the direction of where I want to be. It's a little bit like having a vision board, but on steroids. Just that one thing every day. Pretty soon you're going to get excited about it, because you're going to know this is possible. And then you're going to find out that it's probable, and you're going to make it happen.
Okay. Wow. That sounds really doable too. Like one new thought, one new feeling, and one action.
That's it.
Okay. So let's say I'm really nervous to speak in public, but I have to give a presentation in front of my class. So then my thought would be, I'm imagining myself giving a great presentation in front of the class. My feeling would be like imagining myself feeling comfortable in front of the class, or imagining myself feeling proud of what I'm presenting, feeling strong, like I'm standing with my back straight, I'm smiling instead of hiding. And even if I'm still nervous to speak in class, I just try and imagine that until I can feel a new reality in my body. Yes, that I'm strong and confident.
Yes, because don't forget, heroes aren't brave and bold. They're just the ones who took the step and thought the thoughts and felt the feelings and said yes. Lots of people are going to say, I'm too nervous to do that, but do it anyway. Do it anyway. Stretch just a little bit. I teach people when they say, I'm so nervous, I've got to stand up and speak. I teach them to actually tell the people they're speaking to, you know what? I'm nervous, but I'm doing this. Because when you do that and you share it with people, they have a gentle heart for it.
Yeah.
So bring people with you when you're doing what you're doing.
So would that be the action step then in my example? I'm going to get up there and I'm going to tell people that I'm nervous instead of trying to hide it. And that's my action. And then I'm going to do my best.
I'm nervous, but here I go.
Yes.
And you do your best. And also, it's so important for everybody to remember, even if you were to not go all the way through, or it felt a little wonky, you've still taken a step, and it's a step further than you were before. So you're still on the road. You did not crash and burn.
Okay, I love this. It's so interesting because it seems like even with my example of being nervous to speak in public, we could even look at where did that come from? Do I have some idea that came from somewhere else that maybe, I don't know, my voice doesn't matter, or I shouldn't be, I don't know.
Yes, maybe my dad spoke in public and he said it didn't go so well. Now oh dear, that's me too. No, that's not you. That was dad. Why didn't it go well for him? Because he had a father who maybe had a problem speaking. We don't know. But when we start to look, we often find it didn't belong to us. And when we can turn it a little bit, we've now made a difference, not just for us, not for the people out there, but for everybody in the family. And we've changed it. Now, all of a sudden, it's, I'm nervous, but I speak. I'm nervous, but I take a chance and I take an extra step. And everybody else in the family goes, if she could do it, I guess I could try. So now you're really making a big difference in your world.
And talking about DNA too, it sounds if I make this change in my DNA, then if I have kids, I'm not passing on something that maybe was in my DNA. I'm actually even changing it for future generations because these patterns get passed down.
Yes, you're telling a very different story. So now you may say to your children, once upon a time, I was nervous to stand up and talk, but I did it anyway. And you know what? That's why I teach the classes I do, because I went with the nervousness, but I made it happen. And you might say to your kids, don't ever be scared to take the step. You might be scared, but take the step, because you're going to feel your whole you growing bigger and bigger.
I'd love to give our students some practical ways that they can start to use this concept in their lives. We're talking a lot in this class about maximizing how we can understand ourselves. Yes. And then use our superpowers that we're born with that we don't necessarily know about to create the lives that we want and to create the world that we want. And what I'm understanding from the work that you teach is that understanding where we have these like barriers, where we're getting stuck, it's really important to not just go around those, but to try to understand them and break those patterns.
Yes, and then really important, remind yourself always, I'm the change agent. I can do it differently. I do not have to be the same.
Yeah. So you gave us the one new thought, one new feeling, one new action, and I think that's really doable. Do you have another exercise that we could maybe play with?
Yes, because being in your family, you want to see how you fit in the family and what that means for you. So I'm going to ask you to give me a picture of that. We're going to start playing in that 3D. Now, just remember that the people who are watching, all of the people who are participating, they can use figurines. You and I are going to use noughts and crosses, but they can use sorts of figurines to do that.
Okay.
What I want you to do is, I want you to use crosses, big crosses, okay, to show where your parents are and where you are in relationship to your parents. How do you fit in? Do you find yourself far away, close by, off to the side, closer to one, closer to the other? And if you have siblings, you can draw them in smaller crosses.
Okay. Crosses like this or an X?
An X.
Okay. So I'm an X, and then my parents are O's. Okay. So I'm going to put me here, and my mom over there, and my dad over there. And if I have a little brother, I put him somewhere in a small X.
You put him wherever he would be in relationship to all of you, and he's a small, what did you call it? X.
X.
Yes. Okay. So
I don't know. Can you see this?
I can see that. Okay. Can you tell me which one's your mom and which one's your dad?
My mom is the circle with the little X next to it. That's my little brother.
Okay.
And then my dad is the circle over there by himself. and I'm the big X over here pretty much by myself as well.
Okay. So notice what you said as well. You said, I'm pretty much by myself as well. And we've got little brother close to mom, and we've got dad off. So dad's off to one side and he's pretty much by himself too. Yeah. So now we already have a pattern. And then I notice you're by yourself, dad's by himself. And I would ask you, so What happened with Dad? How was he all by himself?
You already figured it out. So yes, my dad left the family when I was quite young.
Okay, so he left the family when you were quite young, and there's you all by yourself, almost duplicating Dad's pattern. I've also withdrawn a little bit from the family. Mom and little brother are over there, but I've withdrawn. Now, what you want to see is, does it work for you being a little bit withdrawn? Do you wish you were closer?
Mm-hmm.
Do you notice that there's perhaps a little bit of a sense of loyalty to Dad who was on his own? Talk to me.
I do. I wish I was geographically closer to all of them. I'm an adult, so the kids that are doing this it'll be a little bit different,
Sure.
but I think I wouldn't have drawn it that much differently even when I was a kid. I wish I was closer to both of them, but because they're not together, it has felt hard to be close to both of them geographically and otherwise. And maybe other kids know what that feels like.
I'm sure they do, because sometimes what then happens is you drew yourself but not closer to one or the other. It's almost as though you're saying, I don't want to have to choose. And so there's something that I would say to you that I say to all kids like that. Here's what you do. You tell your parents, now I choose you both. Because when you could do that, how does that feel in your body?
I feel like I want to cry. It feels nice.
Yes. Yes, because now you're allowed to have space for both. And that's very important. Sometimes we teach kids, even though we don't mean to, you have to choose. And that's very hard for a child, because 50% of you is mom and 50% of you is dad. So what? You've now got to say goodbye to half? We can't.
Yeah.
So I ask children to say, I have a place for both of you.
Yeah.
What's between you and the other parent is between you, but I have a place for both, and you both belong with me, because otherwise it gets very heavy for a child.
Yeah. So if this is something that I've been carrying around, and then I do this exercise and I see this pattern, how do I change it?
What you do, first of all, is you say, I have place for both. But it's very interesting for me that what you're doing is teaching children how to belong in the world, which is, I didn't always know how I belonged with this going on, so I'm teaching others. So you're already starting to switch that pattern around and give place to both. Now, your brother is interesting, because if he is close to mom like that,
he has a different dad, so that's also part of the story.
He has a different dad. Okay, so that's also part of the story, because otherwise I was going to say, if it was the same dad, he may have felt like he had to take care of mom.
Oh, yeah.
And that can happen sometimes. But if he has a different dad, then you're an eldest, but he is also an eldest. In this family, he's an eldest, and in this family, you're the eldest. And so what we would do is we would draw another circle for his biological dad and see where he fitted in there. Now, why is it important? Because once you understand where you fit in, you'll also understand what that means for you. For you, it may mean like you had to almost be the super glue between mom and dad, and that can be heavy. And you may say, you know what, I don't want to be the super glue anymore. I want to love you in your space and you in your space, because then I can breathe easily. So we ask you those questions, and then you say, instead of becoming the super glue, I become the person who gives everybody a place to belong. That's a very different feeling.
Wow. This is so fascinating. It's amazing what you can learn just from a little picture.
Right.
And I hope that everybody on this class is drawing their own little picture, or like you said, grab some items. You can do it with Legos. You could do it with whatever you have lying around. Put yourself, your parents, your siblings, see where you place yourself in the family, and think about some of the things that Judy is telling us about. What does that mean for you? Why did you place yourself where you did? Is there a pattern here that you would like to shift? And I think the whole thing that you're teaching us about the constellation of the family, patterns that come from the past and those patterns that are still playing out now, is just so important for us to understand, so that we can live our best lives. So
Very
I'm
much.
sure the kids are going to have a lot of questions for you. They might even want to show you their pictures and
I
say,
hope so. They
do
need to
mine,
share them
do
with the kids.
mine.
I also have homework for the moms and the kids. I
Okay.
want them to watch Encanto.
Oh, Encanto, the movie.
Yes, because
Okay.
they actually tell you this is a living constellation. And they explain how
Okay.
when Bruno
I
goes
think I've seen
missing,
it.
it
Uh-huh.
really matters in the family. And why Mirabelle feels like she isn't special when in fact she is super special.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it, so I'm
Oh
gonna
my
go see it
goodness,
too.
you have to go watch it. You have to go
Okay.
watch it. You're going to see all the parts of a constellation, and she sings about a constellation. You will see the
Okay.
whole thing come together.